Lee Do-hyun pulled his cargo ship into Dock Bay 7 of Nexus Station Alpha. The massive station floated in space like a metal city. Ships from dozens of different worlds came and went every hour. He had been here many times before. It was always the same routine. His ship carried medical supplies for the outer colonies. Nothing special, nothing dangerous. Just basic medicine and equipment that people needed to stay alive on the frontier worlds. The pay was not great, but it was honest work. Do-hyun stepped out of his pilot seat and stretched. The long journey from Earth had taken 3 weeks. His back ached from sitting in the same position for hours each day. He looked forward to walking around the station and eating something that did not come from a food tube. His co-pilot Choi Minho was already checking the cargo manifest. They had worked together for 2 years now. Minho was younger and always worried about following every rule perfectly. Do-hyun liked that about him. It kept them both out of trouble. "Everything looks good," Minho said, looking up from his tablet. "The medical supplies are all accounted for. The delivery should go smoothly." Do-hyun nodded. "Good. Let's get through inspection and unload. I want to grab some real food before we head out again." They walked through the ship's airlock and into the station. The main corridor was busy with beings from all over the galaxy. Tall blue Alterians walked alongside short green Vexians. The air smelled like a mix of different worlds and different lives. The inspection bay was located near the main docking area. Every ship that came to Nexus Station had to go through the same process. The station's computer systems needed to check for diseases, weapons, and anything else that might be dangerous. Do-hyun had done this hundreds of times. He knew exactly what to expect. First, they would scan his ship's cargo. Then, they would scan him and Minho to make sure they were not carrying anything harmful. It usually took about 10 minutes. The inspection bay was a clean white room with several scanning devices. A holographic display showed the queue of ships waiting for inspection. Do-hyun and Minho's ship was third in line. "Next," called a mechanical voice from the scanning booth. Do-hyun walked forward and stood on the circular platform in the center of the room. The scanner was operated by an artificial intelligence called Area 7. It had been running inspections on the station for over 15 years without any major problems. "Please stand still while I perform the standard bioscan," Area 7 said in its calm, electronic voice. A blue light moved up and down Do-hyun's body. He had been through this scan so many times that he barely paid attention anymore. Usually, it took about 30 seconds. The light would finish. Area 7 would say, "Scan complete," and he would be free to go. But this time was different. The blue light stopped moving when it reached his chest. It stayed there for several seconds, then moved back and forth over the same area. Do-hyun frowned. This had never happened before. "Is there a problem?" he asked. Area 7 did not respond immediately. The scanner's lights began flashing yellow instead of the normal blue. Warning symbols appeared on the holographic display. "Please remain still," Area 7 said. Its voice sounded different now, less calm, almost worried. The scanning light moved to Do-hyun's arms, then to his back. Each time it found the same thing that had made it stop on his chest. The yellow lights began flashing faster. Minho stepped forward, looking concerned. "What's happening? Is the scanner broken?" Other people in the inspection area began to notice the commotion. A group of Alterian traders stopped their conversation and stared at the scanning booth. A Vexian family moved their children further away from the platform. The scanning lights suddenly turned red. Alarms began to sound throughout the inspection bay. Area 7's holographic interface appeared in front of Do-hyun. The artificial intelligence's visual representation looked like a glowing blue face, but now it seemed disturbed. "Human designation Lee Do-hyun," Area 7 said slowly. "My sensors are detecting extensive scarring across 73% of your torso, arms, and back regions." Do-hyun's stomach dropped. He had hoped this would never come up. The scars were always hidden under his clothes. Most people never saw them. He had almost forgotten they were there. "The scarring patterns do not match any known weapon signatures in my database," Area 7 continued. "The marks appear to be deliberate, organized. created with purpose. The AI's voice began to shake, which should have been impossible for a computer program. Human in these markings, the pattern recognition suggests. Aria 7 paused for a long moment. Have you encountered a Vorthak? The word hit the inspection bay like a bomb. Every alien in the area stopped what they were doing. The Alterian traders stepped backward. The Vexian family grabbed their children and ran toward the exit. Even the station security guards looked nervous. Do-hyun knew the word. Every human who had served in the outer colonies knew it. Vorthak was the Alterian word for demon, for nightmare, for the things that lived in the dark spaces between worlds and hunted intelligent life. But they were supposed to be myths. Stories that parents told children to make them behave. Legends that spacers shared in bars to scare each other. They were not supposed to be real. I don't know what you're talking about, Do-hyun said, but his voice was not steady. Area 7's holographic face moved closer to him. My analysis indicates a 97% probability that these scarring patterns were created by a Vorthak specimen. This is unprecedented. There are no records of any being surviving direct contact with such an entity. More alarms began sounding. Security personnel started moving toward the inspection bay. Do-hyun could see fear in the eyes of every alien around him. Some were running away. Others were pointing at him and talking in their own languages. Minho looked at his friend with wide eyes. Do-hyun, what is it talking about? What are these scars? Before Do-hyun could answer, Kim Ji-won arrived with a team of security guards. She was the station's security chief and one of the few other humans in a position of authority on Nexus Station. Her face was serious as she approached the scanning platform. Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me for questioning, she said, firmly but not unkindly. Aria 7 has flagged your bioscan as a potential security threat. Do-hyun nodded slowly. He had known this day might come eventually. The scars were his burden to bear, but he had hoped to carry that burden alone. Now it seemed like the entire galaxy was about to learn his secret. As the security team escorted him out of the inspection bay, he could hear the whispers starting. The word Vorthak was being repeated in dozens of different languages. Fear was spreading through the station like a virus. Do-hyun closed his eyes and tried not to remember the day he had gotten those scars. But the memories were always there, waiting in the dark corners of his mind. Soon he knew he would have to face them again. The security office was a plain gray room with a metal table and 2 chairs. Kim Ji-won sat across from Do-hyun and studied his face. She had been working on Nexus Station for 5 years. In that time, she had dealt with smugglers, thieves, and even a few murderers. But she had never seen Aria 7 react the way it did during Do-hyun's scan. I need to see them, she said quietly. Do-hyun looked down at his hands. They were shaking slightly. See what? The scars that made our most advanced AI ask if you had fought a demon. 2 other humans stood in the corner of the room. Yoon Tae-hyung was a diplomat who worked to keep peace between the different species on the station. His job was to make sure incidents like this did not turn into bigger problems. Park Soo-young was a xenobiologist who studied how different alien species lived and behaved. She had been called in to examine whatever Aria 7 had found. Mr. Lee, Tae-hyung said in a calm voice, we understand this might be difficult for you, but we need to know what we're dealing with. The entire station is talking about what happened in the inspection bay. Do-hyun took a deep breath. Slowly, he unbuttoned his shirt and pulled it off. The 3 humans in the room went silent. His chest, arms, and what they could see of his back were covered in scars. But these were not normal scars from accidents or fights. They formed patterns, designs. Some looked like symbols that might have meaning in a language none of them recognized. Ji-won had seen battle scars before. She had served in the Colonial Marines for 3 years before taking the security job. These were different. They were too precise, too deliberate. Someone or something had made these marks on purpose. My God, Park Soo-young whispered. She pulled out a scanner and began taking detailed readings. The tissue damage is extensive, but it has healed completely. These scars are approximately 3 years old. Where did you get these? Jiwan asked. Do-hyun was quiet for a long time. Outside the security office, they could hear the sounds of the station. Normal life was continuing, but he knew that would not last long. Soon, everyone would know about the human who might have met a Vorthak and lived. Kepler 442b, he said finally. The three other humans exchanged glances. Kepler 442b was a frontier colony world on the edge of known space. It had been abandoned 3 years ago after a series of attacks that no one could explain. The official report said it was raiders from outside the galaxy, but there had been rumors. You were stationed there? Jiwan asked. Colonial Marine, 3rd Platoon, 2nd Company. Do-hyun's voice was flat, like he was reading from a report. We were assigned to protect the mining operations and the civilian settlements. Park Soo-young finished her scans and looked at the results on her tablet. Her face was pale. These patterns, they're not random. There's a system to them, almost like a classification system. What kind of classification? Tae-hyung asked. Like someone was cataloging him, marking him for study. Do-hyun closed his eyes. The memories were coming back now, whether he wanted them or not. The darkness, the sounds, the feeling of being completely helpless while something studied him like a lab specimen. Tell us what happened, Jiwan said gently. Our unit was investigating. Reports of missing colonists, Do-hyun began. Entire families would disappear overnight, no signs of struggle, no evidence of what took them. The local authorities thought it might be some kind of new predator. He paused and put his shirt back on. The scars were hidden again, but everyone in the room knew they were there. We set up a base camp near the largest settlement. 23 Marines under Sergeant Kang Woo-jin. Our medic was Corporal Han So-man. The youngest guy in our unit was Private Lim Jae-hyun. He was only 19. Do-hyun's hands clenched into fists on the table. The first attack happened on our 3rd night there. We had sentries posted, motion detectors, heat sensors, everything the manual said to do. But they got through anyway. They? Jiwan asked. The Vorthak. Though we didn't know what to call them. Then, we just knew they were something we had never seen before. Outside the security office, an announcement echoed through the station corridors. All non-essential personnel were being asked to remain in their quarters until further notice. Word was spreading about the human with the demon scars. They took Jae-hyun first, Do-hyun continued. Right out of his sleeping bag while the rest of us were less than 10 meters away. We didn't hear anything, didn't see anything. He was just gone. Park Soo-young leaned forward. How do you know it was these Vorthak creatures? Because 3 hours later they brought him back. The room went silent. Tae-hyung shifted uncomfortably in his corner. Jiwan felt a chill run down her spine. They brought him back alive, Do-hyun said. But changed. He had scars like mine, but different patterns. And his eyes were different. Like he had seen something that broke part of his mind. What did he tell you? Jiwan asked. He said they were studying us, learning about humans. They had been watching our colonies for months, maybe years, taking people to understand how we work, how we think, how we fight. Do-hyun stood up and walked to the small window in the security office. Outside he could see ships docked at the station. Normal people living normal lives. He envied them. The attacks continued for 2 weeks. They would take 1 or 2 of us at a time, study us, mark us, then bring us back. Each time the person who returned was a little more broken than before. How many of you survived? Tae-hyung asked quietly. Out of 23 Marines? 4 of us made it to the rescue ship. Woo-jin didn't make it. So-man disappeared on the last night and never came back. Jae-hyun survived, but he's in a medical facility on Earth now. He hasn't spoken since we left Kepler. Jiwan looked at the tablet Park Soo-young had used to scan Do-hyun's scars. The patterns were complex and seemed to follow some kind of logic that human minds could not easily understand. Why you? She asked. Why did you survive when so many others didn't? Do-hyun turned back to face them. His expression was hard. Because they marked me as something special. A prime specimen, they called it. They wanted to keep me alive for extended study. He pulled out a small device from his pocket. It looked like a standard colonial marine communicator. but it had been modified with parts that none of them recognized. This is how they tracked us, how they knew where we were at all times. I found it in my gear after the first time they took me. They had implanted a tracking device without me even knowing. Park Soo-young reached for the device, but Do-hyun pulled it back. Don't touch it. It might still be active. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red in the corridors. Over the intercom system, they heard the voice of the station commander. All personnel to emergency stations. We have detected an unknown vessel approaching Nexus Station Alpha. The ship does not match any known design in our database. Do-hyun's face went white. He looked down at the modified communicator in his hand. A small light on its surface had begun blinking. They found me, he whispered. The medical bay of Nexus Station Alpha had never been so quiet. Dr. An Yejin worked carefully, using advanced scanners to examine every inch of Do-hyun's scarred skin. The xenopsychologist had studied trauma in dozens of different species, but she had never seen anything like this. The scarring goes deeper than just the surface, she said, adjusting her scanner settings. Whatever did this changed the cellular structure of your skin. It's almost like they were writing in your flesh. Do-hyun lay on the examination table, staring at the ceiling. The emergency alarms had stopped, but everyone knew the unknown ship was still out there, still approaching. He could feel his old wounds aching as if they remembered what had created them. Ji-won stood nearby with her arms crossed. I need you to tell us everything, from the beginning. If that ship really is what you think it is, we need to know what we're dealing with. You won't believe me, Do-hyun said quietly. Try us. Do-hyun closed his eyes and let his mind go back to Kepler 442b. Back to the day his life changed forever. The mining colony on Kepler 442b had been home to nearly 8,000 people. It was built around a large mineral extraction facility that dug rare elements from deep underground. The colonists lived in prefabricated buildings connected by covered walkways. From space, it looked like a small metal city dropped onto an alien world. Sergeant Kang Woo-jin had been a good leader. He was older than most of the Marines in the unit, with gray hair and laugh lines around his eyes. He treated his soldiers like family and never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do himself. Corporal Han So-min was the best medic Do-hyun had ever worked with. She could patch up anything from a minor cut to a severed limb. She also made the best coffee in the outer colonies, which was almost as important as her medical skills. Private Lim Jae-hyun was fresh out of training. He was eager to prove himself and always volunteered for the most dangerous assignments. The older Marines looked out for him the way big brothers look out for their little brother. They had been on Kepler 442b for 2 days when the first colonist disappeared. Maria Santos was a mining engineer who lived in Section 7 of the colony. She had a husband and 2 young children. One morning, her family woke up and she was gone. Her bed had not been slept in. There were no signs of struggle. The security cameras showed nothing unusual. The local security chief asked the Marines to investigate. Missing persons cases were not usually military business, but the colonial government was worried. Strange things had been happening on the outer rim colonies for months. We set up a patrol schedule, Do-hyun told Dr. An as she continued her scans. 2-person teams walking the colony perimeter every 4 hours. We had motion sensors and heat detectors covering all the main approaches. 3 more colonists disappeared over the next week. Each time it was the same pattern. No signs of struggle. No evidence of what had taken them. The security cameras recorded nothing. Woo-jin decided to expand the search area. Maybe whatever was taking people was coming from outside the colony. The Marines began patrolling the rocky hills and deep valleys around the settlement. That was when they found the cave. It was hidden in a cliff face about 5 kilometers from the colony. The entrance was barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through, but inside, the cave opened into a vast underground chamber. The walls were covered with strange symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. Jae-hyun went in first, Do-hyun continued. He was always eager to explore. We followed him with our lights and scanners. The cave went deeper than our equipment could measure. Dr. An paused in her examination. What did you find down there? Bodies. Hundreds of them. But not just from our colony. Some of the clothing was from colonies that had disappeared years ago, decades ago, and they weren't just human bodies. Do-hyun sat up on the examination table despite Dr. An's protests. He needed to move. Lying still made the memories too vivid. There were Alterians, Vexians, species I didn't even recognize. All of them had scars like mine. All of them had been marked and studied before they died. Ji-won felt her blood run cold. How many bodies? We stopped counting after 500. The Marines had tried to call for backup, but their communications equipment was not working properly. The signals were being blocked by something in the cave. Wu Jin made the decision to return to the colony and report what they had found. They never made it back. The attack happened as they were climbing out of the cave entrance. One moment they were helping each other up the rocky slope, and the next moment something grabbed Jae-hyun and pulled him back into the darkness. Do-hyun had never seen anything move so fast. It was like a shadow that had come alive. It flowed, rather, then walked, and it seemed to be made of darkness itself. We opened fire, Do-hyun said. Our weapons had no effect. The energy bolts passed right through it like it wasn't there. More shadows appeared from deeper in the cave. They surrounded the Marines and began to drag them back underground. Do-hyun remembered struggling, fighting, trying to escape, but it was useless. They were outnumbered and completely outmatched. When I woke up, I was strapped to some kind of table. The room was dark except for these glowing symbols on the walls. The same symbols we had seen in the cave. Dr. An's scanner was picking up unusual energy readings from Do-hyun's scars. What happened next? They studied me. For hours, maybe days. It was hard to tell time in that place. They would touch different parts of my body and the symbols on the walls would change color, like they were recording information. The Vorthok did not communicate with words. They shared thoughts and images directly. Do-hyun found himself experiencing flashes of their memories. He saw other worlds, other species they had studied and catalogued. They were scientists in their own terrible way. They had been traveling between worlds for thousands of years, learning about different forms of intelligent life. They collected specimens the way human researchers might collect insects. But we were different, Do-hyun said. Humans, I mean. They had never encountered a species like ours before. Different how? Ji-won asked. Most species they studied would break mentally after the first few sessions. Their minds would shut down from fear or trauma. But humans kept fighting. Even when we were completely helpless, we never stopped trying to escape. The Vorthok found this fascinating. They began more extensive studies trying to understand what made humans so resilient. They marked their test subjects with increasingly complex patterns, recording every detail of human psychology and physiology. Somin lasted the longest, Do-hyun said quietly. Even after they had broken the rest of us, she kept trying to help the others, kept trying to find a way out. She made it almost to the end before. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. How did you escape? Dr. An asked. We didn't. We were rescued. A colonial fleet had been searching for us after we missed our regular check-in. They found the cave and attacked the Vorthak facility. The rescue had been brutal. The colonial Marines who found them had orders to destroy everything in the cave system. They used plasma charges to collapse the tunnels and incinerate anything inside. 4 of us made it out alive. Wu Jin died during the rescue. Somin was never found. Jae-hyun and I survived, but we were changed. Dr. An finished her scans and stepped back. Her face was pale. The energy signature in your scars, it's not from Earth. It's not from any known species in the galaxy. Suddenly the lights in the medical bay flickered. The station's intercom crackled to life. All personnel, this is Commander Ryu Dong-hyun. The approaching vessel has begun transmitting a signal. It appears to be scanning our station, looking for something specific. Do-hyun looked down at the modified communicator he still carried. The blinking light was getting faster. They're not looking for something, he said. They're looking for someone. The lights flickered again, and for just a moment the symbols on Do-hyun's scars seemed to glow with the same light they had seen in that cave on Kepler 442b. Commander Ryu Dong-hyun had been running Nexus Station Alpha for 8 years. He had dealt with trade disputes, pirate attacks, and even a few diplomatic incidents between warring species. But he had never faced anything like this. The station's main command center was filled with nervous energy. Officers from a dozen different species worked at their stations, monitoring the approaching ship. The vessel appeared on their screens as a dark silhouette that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Distance to target?" Dong-hyun asked. "Approximately 4 million kilometers in closing," reported Lieutenant Bai Kyung-soo from the communications station. "Their current speed suggests they will reach us in approximately 6 hours. Any response to our hail attempts?" "Nothing, sir, but they are definitely scanning our station. Our sensors show focused energy beams sweeping every section." Admiral Oh Sung-min stood near the main display screen, studying the approaching vessel. He had arrived on an emergency transport ship 20 minutes ago, when word of the situation reached Earth Command. His weathered face showed no emotion, but Dong-hyun could see the concern in his eyes. "What's the status of the civilian evacuation?" Oh asked. 60% complete, Dong-hyun replied. "But we're having problems with some of the alien populations. Many of them refuse to leave." The problems had started almost immediately after word spread about Do-hyun's scars. The Alterian traders had been the first to panic. Their species had ancient legends about the Vorthak, stories passed down for thousands of years about demons that hunted in the darkness between stars. When Arya 7 confirmed that a human had survived, contact with these legendary creatures' fear spread through the alien quarters like wildfire. The Vexians had barricaded themselves in their section of the station. They believed that proximity to Do-hyun would mark them for death. Several families had attempted to steal ships from the docking bays to escape. The cetacean delegates from the water worlds had gone into a complete panic. Their species had racial memories of being hunted by something that matched the Vorthak description. They were demanding that Do-hyun be ejected from the station immediately. "Sir," called Chief Engineer Nam Hyerin from her position at the defense console. "I'm reading massive power fluctuations throughout the station. The alien quarters are drawing excessive energy for their security systems. They're trying to protect themselves," Oh said grimly. "Each species is responding according to their own legends and fears." The worst part was that many of the alien species wanted to hand Do-hyun over to the approaching ship. Representatives from 3 different governments had already approached station security with formal requests to surrender the human. "They think if they give the Vorthak what they want, they'll be safe," Dong-hyun said. "Will they be?" Oh asked. No one had an answer to that question. Commander Shin Mirai entered the command center with a tactical report. She had been coordinating the station's defenses, but the situation was not encouraging. "Our weapon systems are designed for fighting pirates and raiders," she reported. "We have standard plasma cannons and defensive shields. Nothing that would be effective against a ship of unknown capabilities." "What about the civilian ships in dock?" Oh asked. "Most of them are unarmed. A few have basic defensive weapons, but nothing significant. The only real firepower we have is from the 3 Earth patrol ships that happen to be docked here for resupply. 3 patrol ships against a vessel that might belong to a species that had been hunting other civilizations for thousands of years. The odds were not good." In the station's security center, Kim Ji-won was dealing with her own crisis. Alien representatives kept demanding access to Do-hyun. Some wanted to question him, others wanted to study him. A few made it clear that they thought he should be eliminated before he brought disaster to everyone on the station. "You need to move him to a secure location," Yoon Tae-hyung advised. "The diplomatic situation is falling apart. I've got 3 species threatening to declare war on Earth if we don't surrender him. And I've got 2 others demanding we protect him as a potential source of intelligence about the Vorthak," Ji-won replied. "There's no good answer here." Do-hyun sat in a holding cell, not because he was under arrest, but because it was the safest place for him. Through the small window he could see the chaos in the station corridors. Aliens were running in every direction, some trying to escape, others preparing to fight. Minho sat in the cell with him. His co-pilot had refused to abandon him when things got dangerous. This is not your fault, Minho said quietly. Isn't it? Do-hyun replied. I knew this day might come. I should have stayed on Earth. Should have never taken jobs that brought me to the Outer Rim. If you had done that, these Vorthak creatures would still be out there hunting people. At least now we know they're real. Through the station's intercom system, they could hear updates on the approaching ship. It was getting closer. The scans were becoming more focused. Whatever was on that vessel, it was definitely looking for something specific. Park Soo-young appeared at the cell door with her tablet full of scan results. Her face was excited despite the dangerous situation. I've been analyzing the patterns in your scars, she said. I think I understand what they mean. She showed them the tablet screen. The scar patterns had been mapped and translated into a kind of digital code. It's a classification system, she explained. Each symbol represents different aspects of human psychology and physiology. They marked you as specimen number 847 of species designation, Terran Human Prime. Prime? Minho asked. It means they considered you a perfect example of your species. All of their research about humans was based on studying you and the other Marines. Do-hyun felt sick. So I'm responsible for whatever they learned about humanity. No, Park said firmly. You're the reason we know about them at all. Your survival gave us our first real intelligence about what we're facing. The lights in the security center flickered again. This time, they stayed dim for several seconds before returning to normal brightness. They're scanning the station more aggressively, Ji-won said, reading from her security monitor. Whatever they're looking for, they're getting close to finding. Iri. In the command center, Admiral Oh was making difficult decisions. The station's civilian population was diverse, with representatives from over 20 different species. Protecting all of them was going to be impossible. I want all non-essential personnel evacuated to the inner sectors, he ordered. Seal off the outer ring of the station. If this ship turns hostile, we need to minimize casualties. What about the alien populations that refuse to evacuate? Dong-hyun asked. They've made their choice. We can't force them to accept our protection. Lieutenant Bae looked up from his communication station with alarm. Sir, I'm picking up transmissions from several alien ships in the docking bays. They're communicating with the approaching vessel. What are they saying? I can't translate all of it, but the general message seems to be that they're willing to cooperate in exchange for safe passage. Oh's face hardened. They're trying to make a deal with the enemy. The situation was spiraling out of control. Fear had turned the diverse population of Nexus Station against each other. Some species wanted to fight, others wanted to flee. And several were actively trying to betray the humans to save themselves. In his holding cell, Do-hyun could feel his old scars beginning to ache. The pain was different from normal healing pain. It was sharp and focused, like the marks were responding to something nearby. They're almost here, he said quietly. Minho looked at him with concern. How do you know? Do-hyun held up the modified communicator. The blinking light was now solid red. Because this thing is telling them exactly where I am. As if in response to his words, all the lights on Nexus Station Alpha went out at once. Emergency power kicked in a few seconds later, bathing everything in dim red light. In the command center, every alarm in the station began sounding at once. The vessel has just dropped out of faster-than-light travel, Bae reported, his voice tight with fear. Distance, 50,000 kilometers and closing fast. Admiral Oh stared at the main screen as the dark ship appeared. It was larger than he had expected, and its design was unlike anything in any species database. All hands to battle stations, he ordered. This is not a drill. The Vorthak ship hung in space like a piece of living darkness. It was 3 times larger than Nexus Station Alpha, with curves and angles that seemed to shift when no one was looking directly at it. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt to watch. In the station's command center, Admiral Oh Sung-min stood before the main display screen. Every officer was at their station, but he could see the fear in their faces. They were about to fight something that most of the galaxy believed was a myth. Status report, Oh commanded. The vessel is holding position at 40,000 kilometers, Lieutenant Bae reported. No weapons fire detected, but they are sending focused scanning beams directly at our station. Any communication attempts? Nothing we can understand, sir. The signals they're transmitting don't match any known language patterns. Commander Shin Mirai looked up from her tactical station. Sir, our weapons are locked and ready, but I have to ask. Do we really want to start a fight with something like that? Oh, knew what she meant. Starting a battle with a superior enemy was suicide, but surrendering to the Vorthak was probably worse than death. We hold position until they make the first move, he decided. In the security center, Kim Ji-won was watching the alien quarters through security cameras. The reaction to the Vorthak ship's arrival had been immediate and chaotic. The Alterian traders had sealed themselves in their quarters and were broadcasting surrender messages in their own language. The Vexian families were trying to flee in any ship they could find. Several other species had simply gone silent, hoping that hiding would keep them safe, but not all of the aliens were running. Ji-won called Park Soo-young from her monitoring station. I'm seeing some interesting readings from the cetacean quarters. The water-breathing aliens had surprised everyone. Instead of panicking like the others, they had begun organizing themselves into defensive positions. Their racial memories of being hunted by the Vorthak had not made them afraid, they had made them angry. They're preparing to fight, Ji-won realized. In his holding cell, Do-hyun was experiencing something he had not felt since Kepler 442b. His scars were glowing. Not enough for others to see, but he could feel the warmth spreading across his skin. The Vorthak ship was close enough that the marks they had made on him were responding. We can't just sit here, he told Minho. I need to talk to the Admiral. They won't let you out of this cell. Too many people want you dead or captured. Then bring him here. Minho looked at his friend with concern. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that running and hiding isn't going to work. The Vorthak don't give up. They'll keep hunting until they get what they want. Which is you. Maybe. Or maybe there's something else we can do. Minho stood up and walked to the cell door. Guard, we need to speak with Admiral O immediately. 5 minutes later, Admiral O arrived at the security center with his senior staff. The situation outside was getting worse. Several alien ships had tried to leave the station without clearance and had been destroyed by automated defenses. The Vorthak vessel had moved closer and was now scanning individual sections of the station. What do you want? O asked Do-hyun, directly. I want to know what our plan is besides waiting to die. We're hoping they'll take what they want and leave without killing everyone else. That's not going to happen, Do-hyun said firmly. The Vorthak don't just take one specimen and leave. They study entire populations. Everyone on this station is in danger. Oh looked at the young Marine with interest. What do you suggest? Fight back, but not the way you're thinking. Do-hyun stood up and faced the Admiral through the cell bars. Every species that encounters the Vorthak does the same thing. They run, hide, or try to appease them. It never works. The Vorthak always win because no one has ever organized a real resistance. And you think humans can? I think humans are the only species that will. Oh, considered this. In the 3 hours since the crisis had begun, he had watched dozens of different alien species react to the threat. Most had panicked. Some had tried to flee. A few had attempted to betray the humans to save themselves. But the humans on the station had done something different. They had organized. They had prepared. For battle. They had stood together instead of falling apart. What do you have in mind? O asked. Let me talk to them. Every human in the security center looked at Do-hyun like he had lost his mind. Talk to the Vorthak? Commander Shin said. They don't communicate, they just hunt and study. They communicated. With me on Kepler 442b. Not with words, but they shared thoughts and images. They wanted me to understand what they were doing to me. Do-hyun pulled out the modified communicator that the Vorthak had implanted in his gear. The device was glowing now, pulsing in rhythm with his scars. This isn't just a tracking device. It's a communication link. They've been monitoring me for 3 years, learning about human society through my experiences. Park Soo-young stepped forward with her scanner. The energy readings from that device have increased dramatically since their ship arrived. You might be right. Let me use it to contact them, Do-hyun said. Let me try something that no one has ever tried before. Oh was quiet for a long moment. Outside, they could hear more alarms as the station's defenses tracked the approaching Vorthak ship. What would you say to them? The truth, that humans aren't like the other species they've studied, that we won't break, that we won't run, that, if they want to study us, they're going to have to fight us for it. The idea was insane, but O realized that insane might be exactly what they needed. Do it. Kim Ji-won opened the cell door and escorted Do-hyun to the communications center. Every screen in the room showed the Vorthak ship growing larger as it approached. Chief Engineer Nam Hyerin had connected the modified communicator to the station's main transmission array. I've boosted the signal strength, she reported. Whatever you're going to say, they'll hear it clearly. Do-hyun held the communicator and activated the transmission. Immediately, his scars began to glow brighter. Images flashed through his mind, memories from his time in the Vorthak research facility. But this time, instead of being helpless, he was in control. I know you can hear me, he said aloud, though he was communicating through thoughts and images, as much as words. I know you've been watching me, learning about my species. The response came instantly. Alien thoughts pressed against his mind, cold and calculating. The Vorthak were surprised to hear from him. They had expected him to hide like other survivors of their studies. You want to understand humans? Do-hyun continued. You want to know what makes us different from the other species you've cataloged. More alien thoughts, now tinged with curiosity. Then, come and find out. But know this, we won't submit to your studies willingly. We won't cooperate with our own destruction. If you want to learn about humans, you'll have to fight us for that knowledge. The communication link went silent for several seconds. Then images began flooding through it. Not from the Vorthak ship, but from across the galaxy. Other human colonies, other resistance movements, other groups of humans who had decided to fight instead of flee. Do-hyun realized that the Vorthak had been studying humanity for years, but they had never encountered organized resistance. Every previous contact had been with isolated groups or individuals. You're about to learn something new, he said through the communicator. You're about to learn what happens when humans work together. As if responding to his words, every human ship in the docking bay powered up their weapons. The 3 Earth patrol ships moved into defensive positions. Throughout the station, human crew members took control of defensive systems that had been abandoned by fleeing aliens. But most importantly, several alien species, led by the cetaceans who remembered being hunted, decided to stand with the humans instead of against them. The Vorthak ship moved closer, its weapons beginning to glow with threatening energy. Admiral O activated the station-wide communication system. All remaining personnel, this is Admiral O. The approaching vessel represents a threat to every intelligent species in this galaxy. Today, we make our stand. Today, we show them that some species refuse to be hunted. The battle began 30 seconds later. But for the first time in thousands of years, the Vorthak faced organized resistance from multiple species working together. And for the first time in their long history of studying other civilizations, they discovered something they had never encountered before: the human refusal to surrender, even in the face of impossible odds. Do-hyun's scars stopped glowing as the communication link was severed by weapons fire. But the message had been sent. The galaxy now knew that humanity would not go quietly into the darkness. The demons had finally met a species that fought back.